Hello, this is Scott Mitchell. People are asking me this weekend, what are you looking forward to next week? So let's talk about it for just a second. As of Monday, there's only 26 days until May 31st. And that is, according to the Oklahoma Constitution, the day that the legislature and the governor have agreed on a budget. That's what the Constitution says. They can't get away from that. Now, there's a lot of things to watch for over the next few weeks. I can tell you, number one, the legislature would like to get out of there by the middle of the month. You know how orderly things have been, which leads to a lot of misreporting. Oh, this bill's dead for the session. Well, we talked about that a lot this weekend on Your Vote Counts. We've been going over these social studies lessons about why bills are never dead, how rules work. And this weekend we took a shot at May, why it's like October. It's Halloween ish, because a lot of these deadlines, which are now in the past, you're going, what are you doing now? Well, they're doing budget, JCAB, conference committee reports, all of the places where bills that died can come alive. That's why it's kind of spooky. Also, one of the big things that's popped up in recent weeks has been the situation at the Oklahoma Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuses Services. Oklahoma Department of Mental Health Substance Abuse. Hey, they need to rebrand the name. Anyway, the whole point is this. They can't tell right now, and the folks that are there now, Commissioner Freeze and all those, they're not the ones that created the problem. That was a prior administration. But they're trying to figure out what needs to be done to get to the end of the, end of the month of the legislative session, get their budget done. Last week, they wrote a letter to the leadership and said, we can't pay our bills this weekend. We can pay our bills. There's going to be another hearing. There are four, count them, investigations going on. So that's what I'm looking forward to this week about, what's going on there. The other big budget issue is whether or not Governor Stitt's going to get his tax cut or a path to a tax cut. And right now, you were seeing oil hovering around $60 a barrel. There is some bad economic news on the horizon. Republicans, it looks sunny and rosy to them. For Democrats who are having a time saying it's not. Economic advisors say rough times ahead. Anyway, they've got to figure all this out in 26 days as of Monday. Also, I just mentioned energy. So I asked Jerry Bonin, and I do 2 podcasts a week with Jerry Bonin about energy in Oklahoma. We're the only place that covers energy anymore, about what he was looking forward to this week. Here's that conversation. Real quick, what are we looking forward to this week? Jerry, it's you were on the highways. We're certainly going to be watching what happens there. You just came back from Texas and said you can't put a piece of paper between the top of the river and the I-35 bridge, right?
Well, that was fascinating because I'm anxious to see if this will be reported Monday when the State Transportation Department or the Transportation Commission holds its meeting, and they will get an update from the executive director. But, they're in the process. This is a joint process or joint effort between Oklahoma and Texas to build a new I-35 bridge over the Red River. And if you've been down there recently, Texas has its side built up, Oklahoma has its side built up, and they were in the process also of doing work in the river. But as we drove by, I don't think you could get a little skiff under the bridge because the water is that high, and there's equipment down there. You can see the top of it sticking out of the floodwaters. So that's just an example of what one of the stories we'll be following this week. Others,
right. Yeah. So we had a reporter on the scene. So since you crossed that area,
that's right. Yeah,
I'd like to be there for when it meets in the middle.
I know. Yeah.
What other things are you looking forward to this week?
Well, I think a number of things. Of course, oil prices. This is critical. Just on Friday, let's see, West Texas Intermediate was down 7.7% for the week, closed at $58.29 a barrel. And that's on the New York Mercantile Exchange. Brent crude, that's the global standard, dropped 8% for the week, down to $61.29. So what we'll be following very closely is if Brent actually drops below $60 a barrel. This is critical for a lot of oil and gas companies because 60 to 65 could be their break-even point. And if they can't hit that, you might see a real impact on the amount of drilling drilling that's going on in Oklahoma and the other states. But as I've been following very carefully, the Baker Hughes rig count on Friday indicated there's been no let up. It's steady in Oklahoma. We haven't had any decline at all now for several weeks, while other major oil plays and gas plays have seen some decline, especially the Permian Basin. That'll be one story. And then very quickly, there's one story that I find just very interesting. It's not developed yet, but I want to examine this. Okay, so we have the lithium products or the lithium mining that's going on. Remember, we have this Stardust Power Company in Muskogee that opened up in January. And then we have over in the Smackover edition or play in Arkansas, we had all the lithium companies that are in over there because of the growth and the need for batteries. But here's an important question. So is salt water, which they get the lithium from, especially in Arkansas, is it a mineral or is it wastewater? If it's a mineral, it could be or result in royalties paid to the holders. And think about, in Oklahoma, we've had all these wastewater wells. We've been injecting wastewater or salt water back into the earth, and it had all the earthquake situations and problems over the past several years. But is it a waste or is it a mineral? And what are the corporation commissions doing in the oil states where we have a lot of this salt water present? A couple of stories that I want to follow this week.
So there's Jerry's take. Those are big stories, by the way. If people started getting mineral rights, getting money for salt water taken off their land. And last, my conversation with Alex Cameron, News 9 News on 6 DC reporter, who's the only one from Oklahoma that's up there. There's Rentner reporters, but Alex is on site, and we talk on DC Debrief every weekend. And I ask him, what are you looking forward to this week? It's pretty succinct.
Well, I think, again, as I've mentioned recently, the reconciliation bill, we should start to see some progress on that in the coming week as the committees that are writing the individual pieces of that package start to mark up their legislation. So that's what I'll be focusing on next week. But, there's always a bunch of other things that come up, and so we'll see whether it's something from the White House, something else from Congress. But the reconciliation package is going to start to take front and center stage here very soon.
Well, there will be something from the White House. That's the surest bet I know. All right, so that's what he's looking at. For those of you, you may know the reconciliation bill by a different name, and that's Big Beautiful Bill, as the president calls it. Also, that is just one of those stories Alex will be working on more. So, state legislature, the guns, the clock is ticking. There'll be guns a-blazing this week trying to make sure that they get everything, all reserves forward to try to get this done. Energy stories are going to be great. You go to News 9 newson6.com to follow Alex. You go to okenergytoday.com to follow Jerry, our podcast twice a week. And of course, on the weekends, Your Vote Counts Hot Seat and DC Debrief with Alex Cameron. That's our look forward for the week, which could be an interesting one. I'm Scott Mitchell for OKOklahomaMemo.com. See you soon.